Well everyone, as you saw from the title of this video, JPMorgan Chase has officially reached an agreement to buy the Apple Card away from Goldman Sachs. Let's talk about exactly what this means for current and future Apple Card owners. Well now, if you do enjoy videos like this one, consider subscribing to the channel and help us get to 1 million subscribers here in 2026. But now, let's get right into this. So JPMorgan Chase, which is the largest bank in the United States, has reached a deal with Goldman Sachs to acquire the Apple Card and all of its current and future customers moving forward. As of right now, where it stands in January of 2026, the program holds about $20 billion in balances, which is absolutely absurd. I mean, I'm somebody who doesn't carry any balance whatsoever on their credit cards, so to know that there's around 350 million US citizens of all ages, $20 billion of total balances just on the Apple Card, it's absurd. We definitely have a debt problem here in the US, but that's a story for another day. Now, even though they have reached an agreement to acquire the Apple Card from Goldman Sachs, this still isn't official. They just have to finalize all the numbers at the end and the final details, and then there will be a slow transition moving forward that I'm sure we're going to get from both the Goldman Sachs side as well as from Chase to let current customers know of what's going to happen to their Apple Card. One thing is for sure, the Apple Card isn't going to go away, but there could be some changes moving forward, both in a positive and maybe in a negative light as we continue this transition. So why would somebody like JP Morgan want the Apple Card from Goldman Sachs? So the first thing is that it gives already the largest bank in the US access to a huge loyal Apple fan base. If you guys know, especially the people watching this channel and myself, Apple fan people, they live and die with Apple no matter what, and the Apple Card is one of those interesting products where it wasn't really an Apple product, it's a financial product, it's not really a tech product, but Apple techified it a little bit, and the Apple Card has a huge loyal fan base for people who know nothing really about credit cards. They just saw a beautiful titanium card, a great application, a great UI, and they're like, hey, Apple made it, titanium, I'm jumping all over this thing. And just the average Apple customer is one of the most loyal customers out there in the US and all over the world, meaning that they can have and hold on to these existing customers and then upsell them on current Chase products like their checking account, business accounts, savings accounts, investment accounts, and everything in between. And then this is going to be a benefit for Apple as well, because they're going to get a big bank to back them. Goldman Sachs was a huge bank, but they weren't known on the consumer side really. They were more for a little bit more on the higher end side, more enterprise side, more investment side, as opposed to consumer credit cards, which is something that Chase has been doing for pretty much a century now at this point. And then that goes into the Goldman Sachs problem and why Goldman Sachs needs to offload this and why they're trying to do this as soon as possible. Goldman Sachs and Apple launched the Apple Card back in 2019 and it came with a ton of hype. I applied for the Apple Card the moment that it came out and actually got denied a few times, which is kind of interesting, until finally they did approve me probably about a month later after the release. This was Goldman Sachs' first real attempt to kind of be a mainstay bank, a consumer-friendly bank, and somebody who appeals to more so than just the large investment types. They wanted to get into this kind of consumer credit card space, which they've never been able to do. And it looks like Goldman Sachs wasn't actually ready to handle all the delinquencies that came with owning a consumer credit card. Early on, they approved a lot of people that probably shouldn't have been approved for the Apple Card, and once they get approved, it's very hard to get people off the credit card itself, so they had heavy exposure to subprime borrowers. The regulatory scrutiny that they received was a little bit more than they anticipated, and like I said, this is a much higher than average delinquency rate and default rate for credit cards here in the US, which is already pretty high at the end of the day. And just to give you a little bit of context and scale as to how bad this partnership ended up being for Goldman Sachs, Goldman has lost over $7 billion of pre-tax money on the consumer lending since 2020, which is, again, absurd. They've lost $7 billion. Credit cards are normally a huge moneymaker for banks here in the US because people end up paying just the minimums, carrying balances, paying high interest rates. So the fact that Goldman Sachs ended up losing $7 billion on this partnership is kind of insane. And again, this wasn't a bad product, it was just a bad partnership in my opinion. And there's one big detail of this deal that needs to be highlighted when going from Goldman Sachs and Goldman Sachs selling it over to JP Morgan. Again, normally credit cards are a moneymaker for these banks, so the fact that they're losing a ton of money, Goldman Sachs had to discount this balance in the sale by $1 billion to JP Morgan in order to offload this and finally get this off of Goldman Sachs books so they don't have to deal with this any further. So JP Morgan Chase got a $1 billion discount to acquire a credit card, which is going to have a huge loyal fan base, and in my opinion, Chase is going to take this and run and make it a very profitable product at the end of the day. So as I stated in the very beginning, they have reached an agreement, but nothing is official yet, and we still haven't actually heard from Chase as to what they're going to do with the Apple Card. So in terms of what to expect if you're a current Apple Card user, we don't really know exactly what's going to happen moving forward. Now, as of the way that it stands right now, the credit card is a 0 annual fee card. There's 0 fees, no foreign transaction fees, no hidden fees, no late fees, nothing that comes with that with this card, and that's why it was a big seller. And then also from a perk standpoint, you get 1% cash back on every single time you use the Apple Card, 2% cash back every single time you use Apple Pay, and that's pretty much at 90% of merchants now here in the US, and then 3% cash back on anything Apple related. So if you go in and buy a $1,000 laptop, you get 3% cash back immediately. Same thing goes with any Apple services, in-app purchases. As long as it comes from Apple, you get 3% cash back. And then the biggest perk of the Apple Card is that you get 0% financing on Apple products anywhere from 6 to 24 months, depending on the product and how expensive it is. And that for me was the biggest selling point, because whenever I go buy an Apple product, I'm always putting it on the Apple Card and financing it at 0%. And then one thing that Apple added, I believe in 2021, was a high yield savings account that paired with the Apple Card. The only way to get that high yield savings account is to own the Apple Card, and it looks like that will be staying. But again, JPMorgan Chase will be absorbing all those high yield savings accounts, and let's see if they actually give us a high yield savings account instead of just a regular savings account. Right now, I believe the high yield savings account for Apple is 3.3%, which is still very good compared to the national average, but Chase is known for giving almost no high yield savings in terms of a savings account. I think in a regular Chase savings account, which I do have, I don't have any money in there, but I have one, you get like 0.003% on your money versus, like I said, 3.3% that you're getting currently with the Apple Card. And then another thing to know for existing Apple Card users, it looks like you might be able to decide if you want to stay with Goldman Sachs or move over to JPMorgan Chase if you do have a savings account. So that remains yet to be seen. Definitely get subscribed to see exactly what those details are going to be moving forward, because in my opinion, this is a big deal that Apple's switching from Goldman Sachs over to JPMorgan Chase. And then of course, if you're going to be a new Apple Card user, if you apply today, it'll probably still be through Goldman Sachs, but eventually if you apply, it'll be through Chase moving forward. And hopefully they're a little bit more strict on who they approve. And it's for a little bit of a personal experience. I'm a big Chase user. I love the Chase ecosystem. I have the Chase Sapphire Reserve card. I've had the Preferred card, Chase Freedom Flex, Chase Freedom Unlimited. I love Chase Ultimate Reward Points. So if Apple gets to be part of that Chase ecosystem, that would be a net positive for me personally. Like instead of me getting 3% cash back, I'd rather get 3 times points on my Apple purchases and then be able to combine that with my main credit cards and then use that for travel and hotel stays and to pay off other things that I have in my Chase ecosystem. But again, I could see this also being just a co-branded card where it stays in its own silo as part of the Chase ecosystem, but you're not able to use the cash back for points and vice versa. So at the end of the day, who won this deal? I definitely think JPMorgan Chase won this deal because, again, they're getting a $1 billion discount, they're getting a loyal fan base from Apple users, they're getting a credit card that's, in my opinion, very cool, very hype, very trendy even to this day. Yes, there's a lot of losses that they're going to need to intake and a lot of delinquencies, but I'm sure as Chase is known, they're known to handle these types of consumers, they'll be able to clean this up over the next coming years and then turn this into a profitable business moving forward. And then again, I guess Goldman Sachs also gets to kind of end this era of them losing billions and billions of dollars on a yearly basis, which is good to see. And most importantly, the Apple Card will survive, and I'm glad that it will, because the Apple Card is one of those things that I personally really like. I recommend it to people if you're getting into the credit card space for the first time, because it teaches you how to not carry a balance. It teaches you the consequences of what it's like to only pay your minimums. And again, 6 years ago, I really didn't know much about credit cards, and now I consider myself kind of an expert in the credit card space. Again, if you do own a credit card, never carry a balance, never pay your minimums, pay your card in full. But now the big question here is, does Apple become much more bank-like, or will Apple still retain a lot of the control when it comes to the Apple Card and all of its perks, features, and benefits? That remains yet to be seen. Let's see if Chase will nerf it, will make it better, make it worse, keep it the same, and maybe at the end of the day, nothing changes, but now instead of just paying towards Goldman Sachs to pay off your balances, you're just paying Chase. At the end of the day, we'll find out, but definitely get subscribed. Like I said, we're going to be following this news very, very closely, and the second that this comes out, that becomes official, you guys will be the first to know. But that'll do it, everybody. If you made it to the end, leave a little dolphin, and if you guys want to watch more videos like this one, check out one of these videos right here. Until next time, I'm Fernando. Peace, everyone.